Good evening, welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Zakir Jacob. Pakistan has been named and shamed yet again, this time at the United Nations Security Council, where the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, as India concluded its rotating presidency for the month of December, called out Pakistan by saying that countries that harbored and protected Osama bin Laden should be the last ones to be talking about countering terror. To which a rattled Pakistan Foreign Minister made a nasty, below-the-belt personal attack on Prime Minister Modi. And then in response to that, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, when asked by a Pakistani journalist about so-called Indian-sponsored terror in Afghanistan, he responded, tongue firmly in cheek, by saying the question is being directed to the wrong minister. Ultimately, net, the moot point is this. We are seeing one hawkish statement, one rattled statement after another from Pakistani establishment, whether it's the foreign minister, the new Pakistan army chief. The concern for India is this. There is a ceasefire along the line of control which is held for the better part of the last year and a half. Are these statements a prelude to a change of that status quo? But first, the story.
Hillary Clinton actually said that if you have snakes in your backyard, you can't expect them to bite only your neighbors. The world today sees them as the epicenter of terrorism. Nor can hosting Osama bin Laden and attacking a neighboring parliament.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar showing the mirror to Pakistan. It started with the minister's veiled attack on the neighbouring country for giving sermons despite sponsoring cross-border terrorism.
While we search for the best solutions, what our discourse must never accept is the normalization of such threats. The question of justifying what the world regards as unacceptable should not even arise. That certainly applies to state sponsorship of cross-border terrorism. Nor can hosting Osama bin Laden and attacking a neighboring parliament serve as credentials to sermonize before this council.
This led to Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari making a highly objectionable remark against Prime Minister Modi.
He was banned from entering this country until he became Prime Minister.
That's when Jaishankar tore into Pakistan, calling it the epicenter of terrorism.
Hillary Clinton actually said that if you have, I'm giving you the sense, it's not an exact quote, that if you have snakes in your backyard, you can't expect them to bite only your neighbors. Eventually, they will bite the people who keep them in the backyard. But as you know, Pakistan is not great on taking good advice, and you see what's happening there. The world today sees them as the epicenter of terrorism. So my advice is, please clean up your act. Please try to be a good neighbor.
He also snubbed a Pakistani journalist who tried to turn the tables on India.
My question is, how long South Asia is going to see this terrorism and disseminating from New Delhi, Kabul and Pakistan? How long they are going to be at war?
You're asking the wrong minister when you say how long will we do this? Because it is the ministers of Pakistan who will tell you how long Pakistan intends to practice terrorism.
So is Jaishankar's scathing attack a reality check for Shehbaz Sharif and co?
In fact, earlier I spoke with the BJP's Foreign Affairs in charge, Dr. Vijay Chautaiwale, on Bilawal Bhutto's below-the-belt attack on Prime Minister Modi and the role of Pakistan in sponsoring terror and harbouring internationally proscribed terrorists like Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar. First things first, your reaction to what Dr. Jaishankar said about countries that housed Osama bin Laden should not be preaching the world about terror, and then Bilawal Bhutto's rather personal and below-the-belt attack on Prime Minister Modi. How would you see both these comments?
First of all, Bilawal Bhutto has no locus standi to give any sermon to India on the issue of terrorism, and therefore it is quite frustrating for him to listen to Dr. Jaishankar ji in UN, in the Global Forum platform. See, as you know, whenever there is a domestic crisis in Pakistan, They have always used anti-India card for their own survival. And this is a very typical tactic. And every person who comes into the government shows some softness toward terrorism because they continuously use terrorism as a kind of instrument of their diplomacy. As far as Dr. Jaishankar's statement is concerned, he has made things very clear. Kaka, you might be remembering that in 2009, Dr. Manmohan Singh actually surrendered to Pakistan when he said that terrorism and talks can go together. But this government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has made it explicitly clear that these two things cannot go together. They have also made very clear that there is nothing like a good terrorism. Every form of terrorism is a bad terrorism, and the civilized world should uniformly condemn it. However, Pakistan... Yeah, please, go ahead.
Dr. Chatawale, you said, every time there is a new dispensation in Pakistan, they tend to go soft on terrorism. Given also what we've seen at the Afghanistan-Pakistan border over the last week or so, do you believe that Bilawal Bhutto and the other hawkish statements we heard from the new Pakistan Army chief when he was in POK last week, all of these hawkish statements, do you believe they are doing this because of the blowback that's happening right now between the Taliban and the Pakistan establishment, which is very apparent and visible at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border? And therefore, as a consequence, should we be worried about the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, which by and large is held for the last year and a half or so?
I guess definitely the dynamics between Pakistan and the current Taliban regime in Afghanistan playing a role in all these reactions. But even without that, by default, the Pakistan position is soft on anti-India terrorism. As far as the your second issue is concerned, that we have always strived for a peaceful coexisting with our neighbor, and therefore in that context we would also wish that there should be tranquility and the status quo on India-Pakistan border. But if there is any misadventure, Indian Army under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi is quite capable of giving a fitting reply, as we have seen it in case of surgical strikes or air strikes.
Dr. Chatawale, from our western neighbor, let's talk a little bit about our northern neighbor, China. And given this recent episode that we've seen in Tawang, we saw what happened in Galwan in 2020, and the nature of this attack with clubs and sticks and barbed wires and so on. Do you believe China is using this as a pattern? And as an observer of foreign policy, what do you think China's game is? What are they trying to do here?
China's game here is definitely show that one-upmanship, and they never anticipated that Indian Army will give such a fitting response to them. They thought that they will do some incursion, capture some land, and then they will be able to sit on it till the negotiations come to some conclusion. But the fitting reply by Indian armed forces was really a surprise to them. I will not be surprised that if such a very isolated skirmishes between the two countries continue in the future also.
I want to, as the consequence of this Tawang clash, you've seen what has happened in Parliament all week. It's pretty much washed out on this issue. The opposition is saying that, how come the government always keeps Parliament in the dark about this? Would you want to comment on that, on what the opposition is saying?
See, Congress party, which has signed a MOU with Chinese Communist Party, and Congress party foundation, Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, who received the donations from China, have very little to say about China. And therefore, they are using this as a diversion tactics to address the core issue that how come did they take money from China? Why there was not enough donors in India? They didn't find any friendly person from India to get a few crore rupees donation. So there is a very tactical move when they accepted these donations and signed MOU. And there is always an appropriate time to announce every such event And I'm sure the government has taken the full cognizance of whatever has happened in Tawang sector, and then only they announced what about the event rather than giving some half-baked information. So I'm very glad that the government has done a very mature way. The government has dealt with this in a very mature way.
All right. One final word as we close. So we have these hawkish statements from our western neighbor, from Bilawal Bhutto, from the Pakistan Army chief. And then you're seeing what is happening with the northern neighbor in contested points along the LAC. Do you believe that there is going to be sort of these additional squeeze points going forward in 2023? Because 2023 is a big year for India. It's hosting the G20, it's hosting the SCO. It's really a year in which India will be telling the world that we have arrived on the global stage. So our neighbors, do you think, will start sort of pinpricking to try and burst that bubble, if you will?
No, Zaka, the very assumption in your statement that this is a bubble and not reality.
No,
So
I mean, for them it's a bubble. Not that.
So I differ with you in that, or I differ with them. We are standing today on the very firm ground in international diplomacy with your nuanced approach to every crisis that the world is facing today. And Prime Minister Modi is actually giving a leadership, both in terms of thoughts and action, to many countries in the world, especially Global South. Now, in this context, it is but natural that our adversaries who don't want India's stature to go up will try to continue few things to divert the attentions. My submission is that we wish to have very peaceful coexistence with our neighbors, and we would like to continue it in the years to come. But if there are any such misadventures, I am sure the government will take appropriate steps to counter them.
All right, let's open this up to our debate point tonight. RP Singh, BJP national spokesperson, joining us. Dr. Saeed Elahi, senior leader of the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, former minister in the Pakistan government, and Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, also joining us. Let me start with Dr. Saeed Elahi. Dr. Elahi, what was the need for Bilawal Bhutto to make such a rather childish statement, I would say? Because as Dr. Jaishankar, the Indian External Affairs Minister, pointed out, the whole world knows that Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad, right in the heart of Pakistan. That's history. That's not something that Pakistan can run away from.
Yeah, sure. That's right, that Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad. It's very sad that these two countries, after partition, were supposed to be friends and good neighbors, but ultimately they became woes and enemies, and rivalry started. And as you know, in last many years, not only India, but I think both countries were involved in absentia terrorism and supporting terrorist groups. As you said, Osama bin Laden was caught in Abbottabad. That's right. At the same time, Mr. Kulbhushan was also caught in Pakistan, who had a racket of 300 people who were spying and were involved in sabotaging and terrorist activities.
Dr.
So
Elahi,
this is
with
not
due
new.
respect,
But
I don't think you can compare Kulbhushan Jadhav and Osama bin Laden. I think it's apples and oranges.
No. I am just saying that, as you said, that was done here. So same thing has happened. That an Indian senior official was caught with a racket of 300 people around him who were involved in sabotaging terrorist activities.
Tell me, Dr. Elahi, before I go to RP Singh and to Kanwal Sibal, what is the reason for this current standoff? Forget about India. Okay, you have your own problems with India. Forget about India for a moment. What is going on between Afghanistan and Pakistan right now? You're seeing what is happening at the boundary. You're seeing this massive clashes that are going on. Surely it's no one's case that India, let the Taliban grow. Everybody knows who allowed the Taliban to grow. So that new government there, why is it creating all kinds of problems for you at the border? What's going on between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Surely that can't be India's creation.
Uninterrupted 5 minutes to explain?
No, I don't have 5 minutes. I probably have a minute. Yeah, go on.
Thank you very much. 2,500 kilometers long border with Afghanistan, and 99.99% border is safe. One spot, Chaman, is troubled from many years. And that is because of gangs, trades, arms, and narcotics. That is the hub there. From there it comes in. So the clashes, they start in that area. Other thing is that TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, whose leader, Hakimullah Masood, was killed. It is on record. And he also gave a witness having Indian support from Indian consul generals in Afghanistan for 12 years.
Sir,
and many books
have
been written on this.
Dispensation in Afghanistan is entirely a creation of the Pakistan military establishment. But anyway, I won't get into that. Let me go to Kanwal Sibal, please, with your permission, Dr. Elahi. Kanwal Sibal, what is of concern to India is, I think I asked this to Dr. Chautawale as well. You're seeing these hawkish statements. Forget about Bilawal Bhutto. Nobody takes them seriously. But what the new Pakistan Army chief, General Munir, said in POK last week, and then, of course, we all know what's happening in the line of actual control with China. In a year that is absolutely important for India, hosting the G20, hosting the SCO, and so on, do you see these sort of pressure points being squeezed again by our two adversaries, neighbors, what have you?
I think that would be very dangerous strategy on their part, because we've been raising the issues of Pakistani involvement in terrorism in India and China's aggression not only against India in Ladakh and now on the eastern side, but also in the South China Sea and everything else. So whatever the narrative that has been built up internationally about these two countries will only get strengthened when you have 20 countries here holding meetings, not a series of meetings in India. This will be absolutely the wrong time for them to start anything, because they will only prove what India is saying, that they are troublemakers. They will stoop to any level to target India, to try and destabilize India if they can, to promote terrorism, to make illegitimate territorial claims on India. So I don't think that this will go at all to their advantage. So I don't think they will do it. Though, mind you, somebody may have the temptation that let's try and put a spanner in the works when India is getting higher international stature as a result of the G20 meetings and later the SCO chairmanship. That could be a temptation, but I think that will recoil on them. So if they're sensible, they won't do it. So far as Pakistan Army Chief's tough statements are concerned, I think that's quite normal. He was in the POK, and we have said very clearly that the recovery of POK is on our agenda. So therefore, he is reacting to it. But that's neither here nor there. This is not the first time.
Let me ask RP Singh this, that, obviously neither Pakistan nor China are going to do India any favors. We have seen, like I said, the statements from Bilawal Bhutto, from the Pakistan Army Chief. We're seeing what's happening on the line of actual control. What I'm curious to know from you, RP Singh, is given that the rate of pushing terror into Kashmir and the fact that after 370, the number of terrorist incidents have come down, do you see Pakistan sort of changing its tactics? Much of its activities are now being pushed into Punjab, whether it is drugs, drones, or even attacks for that matter.
See, Zaka, we should understand one thing very clearly. What's happening within Pakistan is leading to all such statements by their army chief or by their foreign minister. The statement has only come because Pakistan is crumbling. Imagine there's a country which is selling their diplomatic properties worldwide to pay the salaries of their people. So there's the problem, and how to divert people's attention. But this time, Mr. Bhutto, Bilawal Bhutto, the grandson of Mr. Zulfikar Ali Khan Bhutto, has crossed the line. He has gone personal. Till now they will speak about overall statement, and then when our Foreign Minister Jaishankar ji spoke about the Osama bin Laden, it was on record. But what he said he has gone cross a line. If I had to go by his version, then we should remember his grandfather came begging, kneeling down in front of Mrs. Gandhi to settle down the dispute or return the 93,000 soldiers which were with India, the Pakistani soldiers who have surrendered to India and who were captive with India. But he's missing on that, and that's what the Pakistan comes from. How can we forget that part of the history? But that what Pakistan is, and I really, we don't want to get into that, but fact is, worldwide, Pakistan is known as a terror hub. Wherever anything happens, ultimately it leads to Pakistan. Anything happening, whether in Middle East, Afghanistan, even now, or for example in America or for Europe also, all happenings which are terror related, all leads to Pakistan, and Pakistan is known as mother of terrorism in the world now.
No,
give me a second. And if we talk about that, there's nothing wrong in it. And then we are very clear. Till that time, Pakistan washes off their hand from terrorism. There is no negotiation. And then making such statement, he's going to put himself and his country in trouble.
So let me ask Dr. Elahi. On the one hand, you say, we want normal relations with India. It's India that is not, wanting to normalize ties with us. And yet at the same time, when your foreign minister makes such a very below the belt, dirty personal attack on the elected leader of India, surely then, you can't have it both ways. You can't have talks on the one hand and also these lowly personal attacks.
I think these political statements from both sides are on. It's not unilateral. Mr. Ajit Dole has been saying almost same things. And Mr. Nath, the minister, also issued a very strange statement a few days back. And then also the commander of Northern Command of India, he said, we are ready to attack once we get a permission from government. So I think both parties, both countries, both leaders, they, I think, use this sort of language and attack on each other below the belt. So it is not only Mr. Bilawal who is saying that, but Indian politicians, ministers are also involved in such hawkish statements also.
Okay, I'll come back to Dr. Elahi. We'll try and fix this video. But Kamal Sibal, I think the larger question is this. Of course, I don't think any of us need to pay too much attention to Pakistan. Its economy is in the doldrums. They have all kinds of problems of their own. I think the tirade that Imran Khan has been launching against the army, against the ruling establishment, it's almost like this country is in self-destruct mode. What I'm worried about, though, is what's going on with China and this axis, this Beijing-Islamabad axis. For better or for worse, we can't change our neighbors. I think it was Pranab Mukherjee who said, we can't choose our neighbors. We are where we are geographically. What does India need to do to have some kind of a semblance of normalcy? If not normalcy, at least that our interests are not hurt by these two adversarial neighbors.
Well, before I answer that, a couple of points. One is that the gentleman from Pakistan attributed similar kind of statements that Bilawal Bhutto has made against the Prime Minister to our leaders. He should be asked to cite even one statement which is so crude and which resorts to such gutter language against the Prime Minister of Pakistan. That is one. The other is that it's not as if Bilawal Bhutto is the only one who's used this kind of a language. Imran Khan himself on the UN podium, while delivering the statement on behalf of Pakistan, said the same thing about our Prime Minister. So what should be noted is that whether it is Imran Khan's party or whether it is the PML, they are of the same feather. They are the same breed. So that is now with regard to China. Why do we, I think, assume for ourselves the responsibility of doing something to normalize relations? It is for the other two countries to equally have this in their mind that before the relationship spins out of control, they should do something to stabilize the relationship. India is not taking any initiative to destabilize the situation. India is only reacting. Now, if the Chinese come into Galwan, what does China expect us to do? Or if they come into Yangtze, what do they expect us to do? They are the ones who are actually trying to encroach into Indian territory and create certain fait accompli on the ground. Similarly, if Pakistan engages in terrorism, we have to retaliate, which we have done in the past. So, and we will do it again if this happens. So I don't think that we should be worried too much about what we should do. We should actually place the ball in the court of both Pakistan and China and remain prepared. And remain prepared in terms of meeting any challenge that arises.
No, so the point of my question was, I think it's very clear, at least in the China case, from Galwan to Tawang, this is their strategy, right? This is what they're going to do. They're going to try and do this suboptimal warfare with clubs and sticks, no guns. keep the pot boiling, keep it simmering. The point of my question was, what is our strategy to raise costs on the Chinese strategy? Not so much.
Look, I think it damages enormously the image of China when they see the great PLA using spiked clubs and whatever else they use and sticks and whatever else to fight the Indian army. Actually, it ridicules them. It ridicules them.
Okay. Let me, Dr. Elahi is back. So I want to ask the question that Kawal Sibal was asking you. You said, the Indian politicians and army chiefs, etc., have also made similar statements. Can you cite for me one example, Dr. Elahi, of a personal attack against the Prime Minister of Pakistan or any of the senior politicians in Pakistan made by any of our leaders? Personal attack.
I was saying that Mr. Ajit Dole, and he has been confessing that they were involved in terrorism and supported BLA, Balochistan, and TTP.
No, that's not a personal attack against any of your leaders. I'm asking you a very specific question. Bilawal Bhutto's statement was a personal attack against the Prime Minister of India. You said similar statements have been made by Indian politicians. So I'm asking you to cite examples.
Because there was no Pakistani leader who was blamed as Mr. Modi was blamed in Gujarat and all those areas where there have been anti-Muslim killings and all those things.
Do you want me to cite examples of the riots that have happened in Karachi when General Musharraf was in power? I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's not like Pakistan is a riot-free country, all right? Let's be very, very clear about that. Okay?
And Zaka, tell him what was the result of the Gujarat election, recent Gujarat election in Muslim seats also.
Yeah. The recent Gujarat elections, RP Singh has a point. I mean, for 20 years, that party has been in power in Gujarat. Dr. Elahi, give me a moment. For 20 years, that party has been in power in Gujarat. And the recent elections, the results of which we got to know last week, they've got the biggest majority seen in the history of that state. Surely something must be right about that.
I agree with you, but what happened with Muslim in Gujarat is also a history. And it was condemned by whole of the world. So that's why Mr. Modi had a blemish, a black spot in his career. Okay. Maybe Mr. Bilawal, keeping in mind the history, said so, and he blamed Mr. Modi.
Okay.
But I think, as I said before,
to that. Yeah, let RP Singh respond to you.
That politicians from both sides,
let him respond to you.
They level allegations.
Dr. Elahi, thank you. Thank you. RP Singh. RP Singh.
So, Mr. Bilawal is supposed to be the foreign affairs minister, a man who's supposed to tackle the foreign affairs. And that's why he should be good at history and good at the geopolitics also. He is not aware that in the recent election, in the all Muslim-dominated seats, BJP has won and Muslims have voted for BJP in those seats. So, I mean, you can keep using whatever you want to use for your personal agenda or for your internal agenda. But fact is that in India, there is no difference between the Shias and Sunnis and other sects of the religion. I mean, it's in your country where it is true. And how can we forget what have you done to Sikhs in Nankana Sahib? You picked up the daughters of the Sikhs and they have been forcefully converted. We all know that that's happening in Pakistan, in Nankana Sahib itself. But that point aside, let's understand what is the condition of Pakistan. Today, Imran Khan is raising his head and then they are not able to control and manage Imran Khan. One. Secondly, he is categorically making statements against the army. Today, there is a problem within the army. We all know there is a problem within the army itself. That army is not united in Pakistan. Today, various generals speak various languages in Pakistan. And also, that Pakistan is known worldwide as the terror hub. You can try to cover up as much you want to. But the fact is that scar of terrorism doesn't go from your face.
I got to wrap up. Thank you very much to all our guests. Just one final word. Bilawal Bhutto would be better served if he looked at Pakistan's own history, what his grandfather did to the Kashmiris in what they call Azad Kashmir, POK, or what his mother, when she was Prime Minister, or his father, when he was President, what they did to the Balochis. I think there will be some illuminating lessons there for the young Foreign Minister of Pakistan. With that, it's a wrap. In a moment, my colleague Ridhima joining you with the biggest exclusive.